Do you recommend all new agency owners price things in like a recurring subscription type model?
It depends on your market, but I think it's worth testing both, because you might come to find out that your type of clientele is used to paying a $6,000 or $7,000 upfront charge. The goal should always be to have some sort of recurring revenue.
Yeah.
In any capacity. I think the question is more about how big, or if at all, you have this kind of like setup fee or one-time fee, which could drastically increase or decrease the overall lifetime value of a customer or client. And that is directly correlated to the value that you're providing.
And how would you recommend they price it? Like, let's say, because one thing I'm realizing, and it's silly, I'm just realizing this while we're doing this podcast, but you're in a very unique position in that you can reveal things about how to start an agency business that others can't in some ways, because it's not our primary way of making money at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't have a dog in that fight anymore.
Exactly. And you are not competing with the people that are scammer customers, basically.
Exactly.
So how would you recommend they price it? Like, say, because a new guy is just starting out, he knows how to build websites, maybe with GHL or maybe some other technology. Regardless, how can he price his product?
It's all about how you're making that $1 million offer that is irresistible. Once you place all those things together within the context of whatever it is that you're doing. So within the example of a website deal, there's a significant amount of work up front that provides value to the customer or the client. And if that is worth a lot of money to the customer, then you could easily charge that to that customer. If you're just getting started, you could say that that's what you're going to charge them, and then be like, hey, because you're one of my first customers, I'm not going to charge you that to help me get a bigger portfolio. And I think that's the way I initially got started, was just taking a lot of lower cost deals to build up a portfolio of clients that I could then leverage and be like, hey, this client paid me a lot of money, and if you want something like this, this is what it costs. Because then they have a reference, there's an anchor, there's something to compare it to, where they have a reference there's context of what they're going to pay for what they're going to get.
Got it. That makes sense. So what you're describing, or what it sounds like you're saying to me, is if you're new, in some ways start off charging what you can charge in some ways in order to get these deals and build up kind of a portfolio of clients. And over time, your pricing will reveal itself over time. And as you get better, you'll start to be able to charge more. Is that kind of what you're saying?
High level, yeah. I'm such a big advocate of people signing up for Upwork when they first get started, because it really shows you what businesses are willing to pay for anything. For this type of website work, ads, everything and anything related to online stuff.
That's a very good point.
And I did the same thing. And I've said this so many times to so many different people. When I needed to make money, or I was like, I need to make rent. Yep. I would go to Upwork, and then I would just sit there and apply to jobs for a couple hours. And then all these different $300 job, $1,000 job, a $200 job. And over the course of a couple weeks, after completing several of those jobs, your account starts to show that you have dollars earned, you have reviews, you have ratings, which then allows you to increase the amount that you have on your profile, which allows you to negotiate a higher amount on the job. So like if someone lists it for 200, you'd be like, yeah, okay, that's 200 for the first hour or something, versus 200 for the entire job. And that's to a T, literally exactly how every single person who starts on Upwork and then eventually goes off of Upwork starts their agency, because then they'll start to get a ton of referrals because they provided good work. So business owners know other business owners who then are like, oh, do you have a website guy? Oh yeah, let me give you this guy's contact info. And then it starts to scale from there, to the point where then you never even have to go back to Upwork. It then just becomes an added lead gen bonus if you ever need it.
Absolutely. And I don't think people realize this, but so even when I was working for a major tech company last year, we used Upwork. Literally, I found an agency to run ads for a product test we were kind of doing, and found that through Upwork. So their enterprises are using Upwork. And the agency we hired, they were great. I think they honestly could have charged quite a bit more and maybe didn't realize it, or maybe they figured they would get it later on through us by using us. But they were great. I mean, they were fantastic. They handled everything for us. So not only is it SMBs that you can get on Upwork, it's also major enterprises as well. Mm-hmm. There's actually a separate enterprise kind of area of Upwork where Upwork assists the enterprise companies more. So people will kind of actually go through job postings for you, find stuff, and they'll filter out. And they actually have like I think it's another tier of Upwork that you as what do they call it whenever is it a client, or what is it when you're doing jobs for?
A client, you're a client or a freelancer,
right?
Is the way they say it.
They have a higher tier of freelancer. I can't remember what it's actually called, but if you can get to that tier, then they many times will show you to these enterprise companies, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing how big Upwork is these days.
It's endless. There's so much opportunity there.
I'm surprised that company's not bigger, to be honest, now that I think about it. What is their value? Let me see. Oh, that's pretty big, 1.5 billion, if that's accurate.
Cash 1.5 B.
Okay, so yeah, Upwork then is a great way to get started as a new agency owner, and massive amount of people on there, including massive enterprises and stuff. It is another question we often get, and this is a huge question as well, and I think it's related to Upwork, basically what you were just saying, but like, how do you get clients? You've talked about this before. Let's say they get on Upwork. What would you suggest they do?
Start applying for jobs within your niche. So if you're if you're going to go and start building out websites, search for a website, and then just start applying for all the most recent jobs that are even remotely decent. The hit rate, and this is, I think, where I fell victim to this too. Like you apply to 50 jobs, you get no responses, no offers, no nothing back. You're like, this is not working. And then you give up. Where Upwork really comes into play is when you apply to 150 jobs and 1 or 2 people respond back in a message to you. And then you start the conversation, and then you get on a Zoom call or book a meeting, and then you close a deal. You really have like the grit of going through hundreds of failures, or the work that it takes to apply to that many jobs. That's the hard work that when you're starting out, you can do yourself for free because you have no other choice. So like when I was struggling, like I would just sit there like on a Saturday night and just apply to Upwork jobs for like 5 hours. And I would apply to hundreds of jobs. But after that, the following Monday, I would have 15 plus DMs about jobs and opportunities. And like, okay, now I know how I'm going to pay for rent and food for the next month. Like all these jobs.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful to me, because I mean, we've talked about this before, and there's a ton of kids out there that are, and I call them kids, but a ton of people getting out of college, and they're working some corporate job, and they're realizing like the truth about big corporate, which I know because I spent over a decade in that situation. But it sucks. It does not. It's not inspiring to be part of a team that's, especially of a big corporation. It's not inspiring. There's a ton of people out there that are just like, how can I do my own thing? And I talked about this on Twitter. So have you. I've seen you talk about it with your content, but like starting an agency or starting an online business, a service-based business, it's a great way to like get your feet wet with entrepreneurship.
It's the best way, because you start to figure out how to talk with clients. You figure out what an invoice is, sending payment links, like taxes. Like there's so many things about growing. And I'm so thankful that I've gone through that numerous times already and failed numerous times to know what not to do. Failing forward always, and realizing that business experience carries forward to everything. So like talking with your Upwork clients now on DMs helps you 10 years from now, because you're doing outbound sales to clients for some reason. It's like everything's related to each other as long as you stick with it and are consistent.